Welcome to the Credit Plug channel. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about the important data points when it comes to getting approved for commercial business lines of credit. Now, we're not talking about business credit cards. We're not talking about fintech business credit lines or cash flow based business credit lines. I'm talking about commercial business lines of credit. Now, when we're talking about commercial business lines of credit, we're talking about the credit unions, we're talking about the small as well as medium-sized and large banks. Now, business lines of credit from the commercial lenders are going to be the best financial products, in my opinion, whether you're talking about personal or business. Now, the reason why business lines of credit are so powerful is because you can literally leverage the cash, the full amount of the business line of credit. Whereas with a credit card, sometimes if you want to liquidate it, you're going to pay a fee, right? So if you're using a third-party service, or if you're doing like a credit card cash advance, which I would not recommend because you're going to be paying an exorbitant APR. So when it comes to business lines of credit, those are the best credit products, in my opinion. When we're talking about loans, credit cards, it just offers so much flexibility. And because of that, business lines of credit normally are going to have the highest amount of scrutiny when it comes to underwriting. Business lines of credit offer that flexibility because you can use it just like cash. Sometimes you also might get like an ATM card where you could withdraw the money, or you could just transfer it from your line of credit to your checking account. So this is the easiest, most flexible financial product in terms of cash access, and you can pretty much do anything that you can do with cash, you could do with a business line of credit. So I wanted to talk about some of the data points when it comes to getting the business lines of credit. Now, there's certain thresholds when it comes to business lines of credit, and I'm going to say with 99% of financial institutions, these data points are going to be relative. Now, there are some exceptions, right? So a couple weeks ago, I did a video on Citizens Bank business line of credit. All I really submitted was 3 months of bank statements, identity verification, and they did a soft pull on personal and business Equifax, right? So that's an exception, right? You also got Key Bank where you can get, some of these minimum document business lines of credit. And I'm starting to see actually some institutions streamline their application process. But for the most part, when it comes to the commercial business lines of credit, when the limit is below 50,000, sometimes you can get away with just bank statements and a personal guarantee, right? Some institutions, let's say if you don't have a banking relationship with them, they might want you to send in, your bank statements. Usually if you have a banking relationship with them, they already know what type of income revenue is flowing through your business checking account. And so they may not need to see additional financials. But typically, let's say when the amount is under 50,000, you can expect to get a personal credit check that could be soft or hard, and expect it to be a personal guarantee. Anyway, so usually when the business lines of credit go over 50,000, that's when you're going to have to supply additional documentation such as your tax returns. So a lot of institutions, the threshold is 2 years minimum personal and business taxes. Now, there are situations where you may only have to provide 1 year of business taxes. Some institutions, they even may require up to 3 years of personal and business tax returns. So that's why I'm always telling you guys, when it comes to some of these business lines of credit, 50, 100,000, sometimes you're not going to qualify for that as a brand new business. And when I mean a brand new business, let's say a business that's less than a year old, right? And in some cases, you may not be able to qualify for these different credit and financial products until you're 2 years or even 3 years time in business. So I just want you guys to understand that, because it's going to take some time for your business to be able to generate certain data points. In some cases, if they're asking for 3 years back on personal and business. So you really have to set your paperwork right. Now, when it comes to important data points, and this is first from my recent experience, right? Because again, even myself as someone who, I don't know everything when it comes to business credit. And a lot of this is personal testimonies of me going through the process and being able to see, what the process was like when I applied for different products. So I'll tell you off the break, this week, I just added an additional let's see, 170, and then another 50. So $220,000 in business credit, business lines of credit, specifically at commercial banks. So at one bank, I was able to get $100,000 business line of credit. And so I just wanted to share what the relevant information and what I've seen across these different applications, right? So all of these applications did request that I submit my CPA prepared tax returns. And I'll be honest with you, when we're talking about personal credit, business credit, bank statements, tax returns, you almost got to put tax returns up there when it comes to your credit, because in the situation when it comes to getting these high limit business lines of credit, 50,000, 100,000, yes, your personal credit is always going to play a factor, but your personal credit by itself is not going to get $100,000 business line of credit. You know, there's nowhere that I know of where, you know, I'm talking commercial banks. I'm not talking about these fintech types of organizations. I'm talking about at the commercial banks where you can get 50 to 100,000. And like I said, there's exceptions to the rule, right? You have Citizens Bank, you have Key Bank, you have West Banco, where, you know, you can get business lines of credit under $50,000 or under. I think with Citizens Bank, it's 100,000 or under, you know, with just your last 3 bank statements and a soft pull on your credit. But of the applications I went through this past week, which of, you know, I've never done any reviews. There's no data points on YouTube about it, you know, as far as what I've researched. So I'm going to be providing separate videos on those specific data points and how I was able to get $220,000 in additional business lines of credit, right, on top of the 7 figures that I already have in available credit, right? So this week, 220,000. But I say all that to say it took multiple years to prepare, build the banking relationship, establish, you know, a longer credit history, establish business credit, and then produce the financial records and the tax returns to be able to support these applications and make the lending decision much easier on the underwriter. So in all 3 situations, I did have to provide 2 years of tax returns, right? Another thing that a lot of these applications are going to ask you for when it comes to business lines of credit is called a personal financial statement or a personal financial disclosure. So a personal financial disclosure is basically listing all of your personal debts and your personal liabilities. So things like any, you know, your schedule of real estate owned, you might have your retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, bank balances, you know, any assets that you have. And then, you know, you also list out your liabilities. Now, the reason why a lot of lenders are going to be asking for this is because you will be, for the most part, personally guaranteeing a lot of these business lines of credit. Now, I think once you hit a certain level, maybe 7, 8 figures, the rules might change a little bit in terms of having to personally guarantee, because you just have this long track record. But I would say for 99.9% of the people watching this video, right, if you're a business 5 years and under and you're, you know, doing less than $10 million a year, this information is going to apply to you directly, right? So aside from the business tax returns, all of them did do a hard personal credit check. And in addition to that, like I said, the personal financial statement. So I had to provide a lot of documentation, and they usually will give you a form, right? A personal financial statement. They'll give you a form and you could fill it out, but some of the lenders will also verify that information. So you also got to provide brokerage account balances, personal bank account balances. I had to provide some HUD-1s, you know, just to kind of, you know, show them what real estate's owned. So they really want to see your personal assets, right? Even though the business, you know, they're looking at the business taxes as well as the personal taxes and other business financial bank statements, stuff like that. Since you're personally guaranteeing it, they're going to want to see what your personal financial, you know, situation looks like. So I will say that, you know, these processes are very document heavy. So if that's something that, you know, discourages you, or, you know, if you're really not into providing documents and paperwork, then, you know, it's going to be hard at the commercial financial institutions to apply for these business lines of credit. That's why I always say, you got to get your paperwork right. And so the most important data point out of everything, it wasn't business trade lines. And to a certain degree, credit score was important, but like I mentioned, I have 800 credit scores, right? But if I didn't have the tax returns, and in some cases I did have to provide a balance sheet as well as, a P&L, an income statement. Some of them also do require a 4506T. So, long story short, your paperwork has to check out when it comes to these commercial business lines of credit, because, they're not just letting you get by exclusively on your credit score, right? That's not enough. And I just wanted to make this video to let y'all know, when you're going into these banks, trying to get business lines of credit, $50,000, $100,000 business lines of credit, business loans, you have to come correct, right? Your paperwork has to be in order. And so now, just to recap, the most important data points of my recent, firsthand testimonies of getting business lines of credit: 2 years of business tax returns, hard personal credit check. Business credit was a slight factor, but it wasn't the main driver. And then I said these additional documentation, right? Like your income statement and your balance sheet. So basically what I had to do was I just went into QuickBooks. You could download your balance sheet. You could download your income statement or your P&L. And so I did have to provide that in one of the 3 business lines of credit. And then let's see what else. Oh yeah, you also have the schedule of business debt, which lists out all of your existing business debt. So any business credit card balances, business loans that you have, they want to know all that information. Now, I'm not sure what they do on the back end to verify all of that. Your tax returns are going to be the most important component when it comes to getting commercial business lines of credit. Now, you do want to make sure you have a good credit score, but your credit score by itself is usually not going to unlock the commercial business lines of credit when we're talking about amounts of 50,000 and up. And then when we're talking about amounts of 100,000 and up, let's say over 100,000, then sometimes you might also need to provide some form of collateral. Anyways, that's all I wanted to share in today's video. Let me know your comments and questions right down below. And until next time, take it easy and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.